So a few weeks ago, I did a video talking about why preservation of retro games is such a big deal. Because there are just so many games that have been made over the years that if you don't have their original hardware, you can't play them anymore. They are just lost to time forever. But I had a comment on the video not too long ago that asked me to talk about emulation and why it's such a big deal for preservation. So AJ, this one's for you. But before we discuss why it's actually really important for preservation, I need to let y'all know what emulation actually is and talk about why it's such a controversial topic. But first things first, what actually is emulation? So in the context of gaming, emulators are pieces of software that can be loaded up onto your computer that behave and read files the same way that the consoles did. That allows you to play games like Mario Kart 64 on a Mac, or maybe let you use your phone to play a few rounds of classic NES Tetris. Almost all consoles have had emulators made for them, and it's not difficult to find any of them with a quick Google search. These emulators read ROM files, which is just the collection of information that's stored on one of these cartridges. So the software emulates the console and reads the ROM file as if it were a cartridge and lets you play the game. The emulator will also read any inputs your computer gets, whether that be from a keyboard or from a controller. It will read those inputs as if it were coming from the original controller for that system. But now anyone not familiar with this scene might be asking why I used the word controversial earlier. There's a lot of controversy surrounding emulation because it dips into this little gray area of legality and ethics. Because at its core, there's some bits of emulation that can be seen as illegal. No, it's not illegal to have and use an emulator. And no, it's not entirely illegal to have the ROM files of these games. The legal and ethical problem comes in when you have ROM files of games that you don't actually own copies of. There is hardware you can very legally obtain that lets you dump ROM files from the cartridges onto your computer to then be used in emulators. But if you have ROMs or ISOs for games that you did not purchase, then for all intents and purposes, those games are stolen. You did not pay to own that copy of the game. You essentially took the money right out of the developer's pocket and have effectively stolen this game. But why did I call it a gray area? I called it gray because a lot of these games you can't buy anymore. I can't go down to Walmart and pick up Marble Madness on the NES. I can't go to GameStop and buy Eco anymore. And I can't go down to Target and pick up a copy of the Super Nintendo version of Aladdin. I can't go out and buy these games to support these developers because these games just aren't available anymore. I called it gray because going out to the local retro game store and buying these games does nothing to support the developer anymore. So it can be argued on both sides that emulation is unethical, but who cares because you can't buy the game to support the developer anyway. But why is that relevant to preservation? Because all I did was give you a brief little ethics lesson about emulating all these old games. It's important to preservation because this is something I really hate to admit as a collector of physical games, but the reason emulation is such a big deal for preservation is because physical media rots. Every single game you see behind me, every single one of these cartridges, discs, whatever, has an expiration date. I don't know when that is. Hell, none of us really do, but it is the nature of physical items to decay. And in time, these cartridges, these discs, they're all gonna stop working. The plastic's gonna deteriorate, the cardboard of the boxes is gonna decay. These are all eventually going to go away. And again, there's a lot of these games that no one is gonna mourn the loss of. Because for real, who even cares about Bart Simpson versus the Space Mutants? But as I said in the last video, that's not the point because we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to say goodbye to these games simply because they aren't being made available for us. There are people who would purchase every single garbage game if they were allowed to have a digital copy of it because they know that these games are eventually going to disappear. And even if it is crap, it's still a form of art. And the world has lost enough art already. But that's just one idiot's take on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Tell me your stance on emulation and dive deeper into your thoughts on preservation. It's a big deal, and it's something that we always need to keep talking about. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all. Let's get a good clip of me not being in frame. I was in frame, see? I'm in frame. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Which allows you to play games like Super Mario 64 on a Mac. It's not Super Mario 64. You're dead, aren't you? Oh, you're cooked. You're cooked.